I mean, actually, this brings me to one of the things I've been hoping to talk to you about for the longest time. So I think there's a part of you that finds you've always been very gracious about it and welcoming, but finds my liberalism a bit paradoxical.
No,
And I would,
no, I don't. Look, I don't. I understand the catastrophe of the Pareto distribution. I don't like it. You know, there is this proclivity for capital to accrue in the hands of smaller and smaller numbers of people. It isn't just capital, it's all goods. You get this terrible problem of distribution that's like a natural law. And the fact that people object to that is completely unsurprising. And the fact that if it goes unchecked, it destroys societies I don't think that's a hypothesis. That's demonstrably self-evident. So I especially don't find the compassionate concern for working class people and their well-being the least bit incomprehensible. It's the solutions that are the problem. It's like, well, what should the solutions be? And well, that's where things get very, very complicated. It's not.
well, perfect. And I'm sorry if I implied something that it wasn't even my perception. I think you are, to an extent, a conservative, but I find you, if I listen to you, it's not a simple kind of conservatism.
I'm a conservative for the same reason you are. You already pointed out, like, if you're a social scientist and you don't understand the law of unintended consequences, you are not a very good social scientist. I learned from my clinical research and from studying clinical research for so long and publishing it too, is that you think your intervention is going to do what you think it's going to do, but it isn't. It's going to do something else. And you have to build in, if you have an intervention that you think is going to have beneficial results, you have to build in an assessment to see if it has those results. And like, I talked to the woman who headed the name of it was done not in Cambridge, but in Massachusetts. It was a longitudinal study of antisocial children, the first longitudinal study. It was done in a working class neighborhood just outside of Cambridge. I used to live there, and I can't remember the name at the moment. But in any case, this team intervened with kids that were likely to have they came from broken homes, broken neighborhoods, antisocial neighborhoods. This was done in the 1930s. And they intervened at the level of the child and at the level of the teachers and at the level of the parents, and ran this multiple year project to reduce risk for negative outcomes among this population, randomly assigned participants to groups. And by all accounts from the participants, the children, the parents, the teachers, and the professionals who were running the investigation, it was a resounding success. They looked at the results, and the intervention group did worse on virtually every outcome measure. And they figured out later that the reason for that likely was that they took the antisocial kids and grouped them together in summer camp. They took them out of the city to put them in camp. They thought that would be a good intervention, but grouping them together seemed to produce a competition for antisocial behavior, and it overwhelmed all of the other interventions. That was Joan McCord, famous study. And I talked to Joan McCord a lot about that. But you see that all over the intervention literature. It's very hard to fix. It's very hard to define a problem correctly. It's very hard to develop an intervention that addresses that problem and only that problem. And then it's very hard to get the intervention to do what you want it to. And that's what makes me conservative to the degree that I am. So,
yep. No, I think that's incredibly wise. I would add one thing to your list. It's not just that it's hard to get an intervention to do what you want it to do. It is that it is hard to get it to do what you want it to do. And at scale, these things also tend to evolve. So even if you did manage to solve, right. And so the problem of unintended consequences, coupled with the problem of perverse incentives and therefore bad policy that is effectively corruption, is a very frightening problem. And so I do think we're caught in a basically damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. We can't stay here. And, I agree with you